Hi, my name is Okta. I'd like to welcome you to my first tutorial on a program called Touch Portal. It's a really fun program that lets you do a lot of automated things in your streams. Stuff that can be redeemed through channel points, commands in the chat, or by you pushing just a button on your iPad or phone. It's a super useful program for streaming, and I'd like to show a little bit of tips and tricks in this first video on how to set up some basic stuff and a few fun little things that I've created for my streams that might be helpful for your own. Here's a few examples of some of the things I've built in Touch Portal running in my stream.
Pizza time!
Yes! Evil. Evil? If you... Evil! I am evil now! Thank you. Kills with the production quality. Oh, thank you! Oh, Kieran! Oh, where should we go? I'm at the gun.
Now, there's already a lot of videos on YouTube about setting up Touch Portal for the first time and installing all the stuff, so I'm not going to cover that here because it's already been done, but I will offer a few tips on setup to remember while you're using the program. First thing is, even if you're using Touch Portal only for the event commands and not for any of the on-screen buttons to push, you still need to have it connected to a mobile device once the program is running in order for anything to work, including the events triggered by other things like chat. So you will need a mobile device of some sort to connect to the program. Second thing I highly recommend is buying the Pro version of Touch Portal on whatever device you're going to be connecting to. There's many features in the Pro version that aren't in the free version, the biggest one being events, which is how I do most of my stuff automatically. Alright, let's jump into Touch Portal and I'll give a little tour of the program and then show off how to build action flows as well as go over some of the tools that you have available when building them and what they do. Alright, when you first boot up Touch Portal, this is what you're going to see. This is the Pages screen. This screen shows the button layout that it will show up on your mobile device, and you can edit these buttons to do basically whatever you want. Right now I have things like my desktop audio mute, my mic mute, switching here between my different scenes in OBS, as well as activating some flows of actions such as my Be Right Back screen, and going to different pages such as my facial expressions page and sound effects list. Next, we have the values page. Here you can create values. The main uses that I have for values is setting up things like on-off switches for things like my sound effects in chat, or incrementing or random number values that determine certain videos that get played on my redeems or certain other things. Next up is events, and this is a section that gets a lot of use in my stream. This is the section that lets you set up things that will automatically trigger based on certain events happening. If we go into add event, you can see all the different things that can act as a trigger. And last, we have flows. And in flows, you can build flows of actions that can then act as their own little node that you can then use in events or buttons on your pages. This is extremely useful if you want to build something like an event that does something random. Instead of building each individual flow in that event for every possibility of the random event, you can instead build each possibility into their own flow here and just slot those nodes into the triggers for the random event. It's also useful if you're making an action flow that will be used in many different buttons or event triggers. That way you can build it here first and then use that node that you've made instead of building the same action flow over and over and over again. All right, now that we've gone through our little tour of Touch Portal, let's go into building an action flow and looking at all the tools that you have available when doing so. In order to show off all of the options that you have, I'm going to go into Add Event, so that way we can look at both the event triggers and also all of the options you have for making your action flow. First things first, we want to name our event. Other options you have up here is the cooldown timer, which will make it so that the event cannot be triggered for a certain amount of time after it's triggered once. And also the queue lane, where you can set events to the different numbers, and those queue lanes will let events queue up in order to play one right after another. That way, if you have multiple big, flashy, or long redeems that you want to have action flows for, they won't overlap each other. Alright, let's go through a few of the event triggers that you can use to trigger your flows of actions. The ones that I end up using the most are the ones based on things that happen on Twitch. So things like new subscriber, which you can customize to be subs, resubs, gift subs. You can make them do different things, make special events based on what type of sub happens. You also have ones for when someone starts hosting your stream or when someone raids your stream. But the two ones I end up using the most are channel point redeems, where you just paste the exact name of the redeem straight from your Twitch deck right here for the ID. And that way, whenever someone redeems that on your channel, it executes the flow of actions. And the other one is chat message event, which you can do to create commands, either by having certain words trigger them, or the way that I usually do it is have the universal chat command of exclamation point and whatever the word is to activate it. And you can further customize these commands by picking who is able to actually activate these commands. Either everyone, or only mods, or just you. Now let's go over the tools you have available here when building your action flows. First, we have Run and Open. These are actions that will do things like starting applications, opening files, opening folders, or running batch files on your computer. Next useful one is Input. In this section, you have things like writing a string of text, clicking the mouse on a certain area of the screen, or the most useful one for me, which is virtual key presses, which you can use to press multiple virtual keys on a keyboard in order to do things such as trigger emote shortcuts that you have set up for your VTuber. Next, we have the utility functions. These ones have some that I have no idea why you would use, such as locking your computer or shutting down your computer completely. But there is a couple that might be useful, such as copying an image to your clipboard or a file to your clipboard in order to paste it later. Also, there is an extremely useful action in here, which is switching events on and off, which you can use to turn on and off certain events that you have set up in order to disable them and re-enable them whenever you want. Next, we have the logic section, where you can find things like waiting for a timer, if then statements and else statements that will help you build action flows that will have multiple outcomes, and also the important one, which is execute flow, which you can use to execute any of the flows that you've built in the flows section of the Touch Portal interface. Next, we have the value section, where you can do a lot of things with values, such as setting them to a specific value, but you also have other tools in here, such as incrementing the value for numbers and randomizing a value of numbers, which you can use in certain situations to trigger different effects. Also, in a lot of these tools, you can find this little plus button, and this can take information from a variety of different sources. One of the most useful being pulling information from Twitch, such as who you were hosted by, who was rating you, as well as the content of the last message sent and the name of the person who sent it. Next, on to file input output, which has functions that let you write to things like text files and change them or add to them. These functions have a ton of uses, and I'm going to show you a very simple one that has been extremely helpful for me when I'm streaming later on in the video. Next, we have media functions, which has a ton of different actions relating to media sources, but the one that I end up using the most is just the play audio one, which will take an audio file from your computer and just play it through TouchPortal. Next, we have the OBS section, which has a ton of different options that you can do to control things in OBS while you're streaming. You can do things such as turning off and on the visibility of sources or whole scenes, muting source volumes, going live, taking a screenshot, controlling your media sources, increasing or decreasing the volume, and turning on and off filters. There's also a section for Streamlabs OBS, but it is a much smaller selection, and all the ones that are in here are also in regular OBS. Next, if you connect your Twitter to TouchPortal, there's a couple options for sending a tweet or setting your profile name. There might be some fun ideas that you could do with making some redeems using those. And the last of the sections that I use is the Twitch section, which has things like sending a chat message that you've already pre-wrote out, clearing chat, playing an ad, creating clips, setting the title and category of your streams, switching to emote-only chat, follower-only chat, and subscriber-only chat, as well as switching on slow chat. And that concludes our little tour of the functions and options that you have when you're using TouchPortal. So now that we've gone through all of that, let's get to the fun part. Let's build something. All right, time for some examples. And to do that, let's add a new event. And I will recreate one of my most asked about chat functions, the emotes that happen on my face that play a sound effect at the same time, that are all controlled by chat commands. The first part of making this action flow was actually to make a new value. I already made the sound effects play value here, but if you need to make a new value, you just go up to add value and you come up with an ID and name. Usually I just do the same for both of them. And then you come up with a default value. And in Sound Effects Play's case, I usually just go with off, because this is just going to be an off and on switch or an off and on check. Now that we have our value set up, let's start making our event. First things first is to come up with a name for it. In this case, let's do the one that we had an example video of, which is Pizza Time. Next is to set the event that will trigger our flow of actions. In this case, we want it to be a chat message, and it'll be a chat command that anyone can do. So we want everyone to be checked. And also we want to change this from contains to is equal to. You can see the different options you have here. Contains means that if the text string that you input is anywhere in the chat message, it will trigger the flow of events. But in this case, we want it to be is equal to, so that only when the exact chat message, no more, no less, is pizza, it will trigger the events. The first thing that we're going to add is an if statement. And the reason we're going to do this is we have our value of sound effects play that we created, and we're going to do this so that it checks whether a sound effect is currently playing. So if sound effect play is off, that means nothing is playing. But if it's on, then it'll ignore the flow of actions and not play a sound effect. Since sound effect play is off, we can now set our flow of actions to go in this if statement. That will happen if someone types the command pizza and sound effect play is off, which means no other sound effects are happening. The first thing that we want to do is set the value of sound effects play to on. That way, no other sound effect commands can get activated and interrupt or overlap. Next, we want to go down to play audio. And we'll pick an audio file, Pizza Time, and add it. So this will play the Pizza Time MP3 that is on my computer right now through TouchPortal as the audio source. Next, for me, I need to trigger my emote that is on my model. And in order to do this, I have a function key set up to trigger that. And so we need to make a virtual key press. In this virtual key press, you can have any key that you want. I have mine set to the function keys over here that are high function keys that aren't really used on most keyboards and by most programs. So you're pretty safe to use these for emotes and other things without it interfering with Windows or any other programs that you're running. So for this one, let's just say F18, and we will move that over here. So now it will key press F18 in order to trigger the emote in VC Face for me. Next, after the emote has popped up on my face, I have the wait timer. And this wait timer is so that it can wait for the amount of time that the sound effect is. So in Pizza Time's case, I think it's about 2 seconds. But you can change the thing from seconds to milliseconds to minutes and adjust accordingly to what value you need there. Next is to make the emote go away from my face after the sound effect is done playing. And in order to do that, we just push the same key again. And if you want, you can just right click and copy selected actions and paste in order to just copy and paste actions within the flow of actions builder that you have here. Another thing that you can do is select multiple actions if you want to copy and paste a big chunk by holding Control and clicking on each action in the flow and then right clicking to copy all actions. A weird thing that I noticed though is they go in order when you paste them of the order that you clicked them in. So if you want everything to line up perfectly, you should click from top to bottom to copy and paste the actions that you want to happen. And finally, for this action, we have another wait timer. This is so there is a buffer between sound effects being able to be activated. That way it's not a constant cacophony if people are spamming them. In my case, I use 5 seconds as a little buffer gap between sound effects. And last but not least, we have to add another set value for sound effects play. This is so that we can turn it back to off so that other sound effects, when they get activated, will be able to play after the 5 seconds are up. And there you have it, a simple little action that plays a sound and activates something on your VTuber while also making sure that no other similar sound effect actions play and overlap it. Here's how to make a useful little action that I created for my chat that lets them take notes for me, and those notes get written to a text file on my computer that I can refer to later. First thing to do is make a name, as usual. Second thing is the event trigger, which in this case will be a chat message that contains the phrase note. Now I'm leaving it on contains because I want !note to be the trigger in a longer chat message and not be the entire thing. So if a chat message contains !note, we can go down here to file input output and go append to file. Now you'll already have to have a file set up, a text file that you've created. In mine, I have one called Stream Notes. And then you will go to the append section and add a Twitch value of the Twitch chat message sender number 0, which takes the name of the last person in chat who sent this note. I like to add a space dash space and then go back into the values and add chat message number 0. To finish it off, add a return to it so that it makes a new line for the next one. And technically, that's all you need. When someone does !note as part of their message, their name and their message get added to streamnotes.txt. Now, my version of it is a little bit fancier. As you can see, mine still has the basic action that we created up here, but it also checks to see if there's an animation that is currently playing, and if it's not, it plays a little sound and plays the animation that goes along with the note taking. That animation is its own little flow that can be executed, which we will go look at in the flow section. So here's that flow for the note taking animations. The first thing that happens is a random value generator. I have a value called rare that it generates a number between 1 and 20. if that value is 20, a rare animation plays on stream. But you can add an else to your if statement to say if that doesn't happen, then the rest of it happens. The usual default one plays. It's a little something that makes it unique, a little more random and chaotic. Another little tip I have for Touch Portal that I've found while working with it is if you have a source for an alert or an animation that's on multiple scenes that you want to do, the best thing to do is put that source in a group and copy and paste reference of that group to the different scenes that you want it in. If a group is copy and pasted into different scenes, the source visibility syncs up between all scenes. That way, when you're working with Touch Portal, you only have to show and hide the source in one of the scenes, and it will go across all of them that it is actually in. Or else you'd have to show and hide every single instance of that source in every scene that it's in. Well, there you go. There's my little introduction to Touch Portal. I hope I was able to teach something useful, and I'm really excited to see other people start using this to make fun stuff for their VTubers. If you want to come check out my streams and see what I do with Touch Portal, come check me out at twitch.tv/octocopy. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have that I might be able to answer in the comments below. Hope you have a good day. Bye.